Hey everybody, we're going to do our second video today, and the reason why we're doing this one is because we are still out of our classroom and hopefully we will be back in there tomorrow, but in the meantime we're going to push forward using our new resource, which is our flipped classroom. Today, some exciting news. I have a celebrity guest who's here to pump you up about learning about STEMs, and so I want to introduce our guest today. Our guest today is Lil Wayne, also known as Lil Weezy. I do not endorse him. I do not personally know him. I know a friend who knows a friend who called in a favor to get him to pump you up about STEMs. So here he goes.
We're going to learn about STEMs today. I like STEMs so much, I'm going to change my name from Little Weezy to Little STEMs.
So as you can see, even celebrities think STEMs are super cool, and you should know everything that you can about them. This is going to be a really quick section, and I'm going to tell you at the end the specific things that you need to remember. So just follow along so those things stick into your memory. Alright, and we will get started now. Alright, so yesterday we talked about the leaves, and the second part we're going to talk about are the stems. The main functions of the stems is to move materials. So what materials do we move inside a plant? We move water, and we move minerals, and we move food. So basically, your roots are going to soak up water and minerals, and they have to be moved up the plant to the other parts like the leaves and the flowers. Your leaves make the food through photosynthesis, so the food has to be moved to the other parts of the plant like the flowers and the stem and the roots, and the stem is sort of like a highway that moves foods and goods from one town to another. A structural function of the stem is it basically supports your leaves and flowers. Leaves and flowers can be heavy, and they're important structures. The flowers are the reproductive organ of not every plant, but most of the plants that we will talk about. And the leaves is the food factory or the restaurants. So they have to be supported and be able to be held up to the sun. The stems can also be a place where food is stored. The outside part of your stem is going to be made up of some different things. You're going to have little tiny pores, so just like your skin has pores, if you've ever had a sunburn and your skin peeled off and you held the skin up to the light, you can see tiny little pinholes in the skin. This is going to be the pores of your skin. Well, plants have skin, epidermis, talked about that yesterday, and they also have pores that they can breathe out of. But that's not going to be the most important part of the external part of the stem. The part we're going to focus on are the scars. So just like when you get a cut on your skin and it leaves a scar in your skin so you can see where you fell down and hurt yourself or had an accident maybe when you were little or maybe like an athletic related injury, plants also have scars. They have scars where their buds used to be, and they also have scars where the leaves used to be attached. Those are called bud scale scars and leaf scars. So basically, when a plant loses its leaves and it falls off the tree, you can still see a place on the limbs where the leaves used to be located. It's actually pretty cool, and hopefully when we get back into the classroom, I can find a stick or twig outside to show you the pores and the scars. They will be obvious to the unaided eye. Alright, continuing the external part of the stem, and there'll be a diagram coming up in just a few slides to kind of help you visualize this. You have the terminal bud. That's going to be the bud on the very end of your stem. So think about your body as a stem and your head as the terminal bud. Alright, so it's going to be on the very end, at the very top. There's another type of bud. It's called the auxiliary lateral or lateral bud, and those are the buds that are on the sides of the stem. So as you can see in this diagram, let me pull up some different colors here so that you can see what I'm talking about. And we'll use red today. So all these teeny tiny little pores here, that's going to be the pores where the stem actually breathes. Your terminal bud is going to be at the head or the end of the stem. Your auxiliary bud is going to be on the side of the stem. And then you're going to have scars where the leaves used to be and also where the buds used to be. So those are going to be the different components of the outside of stems. Alright, the most important part that you need to know for your exam coming up at the end of the semester is going to be the internal tissues of stems. So you have the xylem, And again, the rap song, the xylem flows up, the phloem flows down. So xylem's going up from the roots to the rest of the plant, and the phloem is flowing down towards the roots from the leaves. Alright, the purpose of the xylem is to transport water and nutrients up the stem. The phloem's main purpose is to be sort of like a road that transports food from the leaves down to the roots. Now, depending on what type of plant you're looking at, you may have a layer, which is called a cambium layer. And the cambium layer is going to separate the xylem or phloem or be on the outside of the xylem and phloem. And the cambium is just an actively growing tissue, and it can be between bark and wood of woody stems, and it's going to be where new cells will be formed. If we talk about a woody stem, the bark is the old inactive phloem. So as the phloem gets old, it changes into bark. So that's going to give you a hint that the phloem would be located sort of on the outside of the woody stems. The heartwood is the old inactive xylem, and then the sapwood is the new xylem. So this is going to be the new growth of that type of tissue. Alright, there's two different types of plants. There are monocots and dicots. Monocots meaning that if you look at the cross section of the stem, it's going to sort of look like a pepperoni pizza. You're going to have your vascular bundles, and it's going to have xylem and phloem inside of one bundle. So you will have xylem and phloem in here. That's what these red circles represent. So you're not going to have anything separating the xylem and phloem. You have an outside structure, and then xylem and phloem on the inside. Some examples of monocots are grasses and corn. And you will need to remember what a monocot stem is made up of, which would be xylem and phloem in one area together, nothing separating them. Another type of plant is a dicot, and the stem structure for a dicot is also going to include a xylem and phloem, but as you can see in this diagram, the xylem is located here in the middle. The phloem is this orange part on the outside. But then you have a special layer, which is going to be this teal or blue layer, and that's going to be the cambium. The cambium in a dicot is going to separate the phloem and the xylem. So just think about a little division in between the xylem and phloem that's only in dicots. Examples of dicots are all trees. There's some specialized types of stems, and some of these you may know as flowers or things that are edible. A corm is an underground, fleshy, scale-covered stem, and some examples are gladiolus, and that's a specific type of flower that grows from an underground stem. One that's more commonly known by you would be a bulb, and some examples of bulbs that we would actually eat would be an onion. Flowers that are bulbs would be tulips and lilies, and that's going to also be layers of fleshy tissue, but these are more like scales, and they overlap each other, and again, they grow underground. A tuber is a potato. A potato is going to be a thick, starchy underground stem, and that's where food is stored. Of course, you know we can eat potatoes, so we're eating stems when we eat all types of these things. A crown. An example of a crown would be an African violet or a fern. We're learning about ferns this week in Plant ID. So that's going to be a lot of plantlets grouped together just below the ground. So when you pass around your fern later in the classroom this week, take a look at the base of those stems, and you can see what a crown actually looks like. Spurs. Some of you may know spurs are on the back of cowboy boots, but there also can be spurs on stems. Spurs are going to be stems that have been produced by a plant as it goes through adaptations when it gets fruit. So just imagine you had a big apple growing on the edge of this stem. You need a short stem that's going to hold that apple up. If it was a long stem, the stem would start to kind of arch over, and the apple would not be held out like it needs to be so that it can grow properly. So instead, we use a shortened stem called a spur, and that can support the fruit's total weight. It's going to increase fruit production as well. A rhizome is an underground stem. An example of that could be some types of grasses, and then an example of a flower is an iris. It's going to produce roots underground, and then everywhere it touches the soil surface, it's going to have actual green vegetation. So it's going to have shoots coming up out of the ground, but the stem is underground. And our last type of stem is a stolon. A stolon is a stem that grows above ground. Some examples of those would be strawberries, squash, watermelons. So just remember, a rhizome is going to be a stem growing underground, and then a stolon is going to be one that's actually on top of the ground that you can see. Some stem crops, some pretty yummy things and some useful things that we use. You have bamboo in this picture, you have asparagus, you have potatoes. Potatoes a tuber, specialized type of stem. You have notebook paper, and then you have lumber. All of these came from stems because tree trunks, of course, they're dicot stems, and that's where you get wood products from. Alright, so that concludes our STEM presentation. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I know I enjoyed presenting it to you, and Little Wayne enjoyed introducing it to you. So what we're going to do now is you're going to go over some review questions that just basically reviews what we talked about yesterday when we looked at leaves and today with stems. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time.